As football has gained popularity, the number of football-related injuries has risen. A concussion causes temporary loss of brain function leading to cognitive, physical, and emotional symptoms. But that isn't all. There's abnormal brain activity for years after a concussion. Football helmets are the number one line of defense against concussions. They have come a long way over the years, but there are many aspects that can still be improved to ensure safety. Helmets were first worn in football during a game between the Army and Navy in 1893. The early helmet looked much like this one and was first worn simply to protect from massive head injuries that could result in death. The first leather helmet slowly evaporated from use when metals and plastics began to take over the market. In 1969, the NOCSAE was formed and implemented the first safety standards for helmets. These led to the hard-shelled helmet that is very similar to those that players are used to today. Currently on the market, there are several helmets made specifically for reducing the likelihood of a concussion, but much more work still needs to be done.
I'm no expert, Hannah, but I do happen to know one. John's been a trainer with the Razorback football team for 3 years now, and he's agreed to let me pick his brain about concussions. Let's take it over to him and see how someone would go about diagnosing a concussion.
Well, there are several signs you can get to diagnose a concussion, such as headache, dizziness, nausea. These are all self-reported by the athlete. If they black out, that's a common symptom of having a concussion, although not always indicative, and you don't have to black out to be diagnosed with a concussion.
So, what exactly happens in order for a person to get a concussion? Understanding this question is the foundation for implementing new ergonomic designs to help reduce the player's risk.
Well, mainly whenever you get a concussion, it's normally a blow to the head and a twisting, jerking motion. Just basically it's when inside your skull the brain is bouncing around and rebounding, and once it has an impact on the inside of your skull, even with the cerebral fluids inside of your skull, it goes through and still hits hard enough to cause bruising in the brain.
The points of emphasis, as you heard from John, are large linear blows and rotational forces. Our new design takes both of these principles into consideration to increase player safety.
After talking to the trainer and understanding all the forces that the head of the player endures during football, we designed the helmet with a three-part system. The first part of our three-part system will be an interlocking core. What this does is it takes the traditional helmet and breaks it up into multiple pieces, as you can see in the picture on the left. At each intersection there will be cushions, you can see in the picture on the right, that would help cushion forces as they hit the helmet. So what this helmet does as a whole is, instead of having the traditional helmet, which has a pull ball effect, is where one side of the helmet is hit and then it transfers directly to the brain of the player, this would transfer the forces to other parts of the helmet, so it dissipates the forces over each of these pieces, and these cushions you saw in the picture on the right help catch those forces and lessen it when it actually transfers into the brain of the player. The second part of our three-part system will be to add a padded cap. What this does is it simply just reduces the amount of force that each hit has on the head. The difference between our design and this design you see on the screen is it would already be designed to fit our helmet. It would not be an aftermarket product. So the cohesion between the interlocking core and the helmet, and then our part 3 of our system, would be a lot better than just to have an aftermarket guardian put onto our helmet.
The third part of our redesign is adding a liner underneath the helmet core. The liner is what would actually attach to the player's head, and then the core would be attached to the liner using rubber straps. These rubber straps would be stiff enough to make the helmet and liner feel like one continuous piece, but elastic enough to let the helmet move at faster speeds relative to the player's head. This is best explained using a bicycling helmet that has similar technology. So here's the liner on the bicycle helmet, and as a player lands, or a bicycler would land on the ground, the helmet would absorb the linear forces and the liner would compress into the helmet. And then as the helmet rotates, the liner decompresses, moving the head slower than the helmet. The helmet can slide along the helmet and move at the same speed as the liner. This increases the amount of time that the head spins rotating, which decreases the acceleration and decreases the rotational forces applied to the head. In conclusion, our helmet works by reducing and dispersing the forces applied to a player's head. The interlocking plates disperse the forces, the cap reduces the linear forces, and the liner reduces the rotational forces on the player's head. All three of these things reduce the odds of a player receiving a concussion and helps keep players on the field instead of off the field.